Hi and welcome to a new episode of the Wool Revolution podcast. My name is Helena. I live in Stockholm, Sweden. Welcome to everyone who's new to this channel. I've seen that for the last couple of weeks. There are some new people following me here on YouTube, so that's really fun. Welcome. I hope you'll enjoy this episode and every future episode, every past episode. I'm squeezing in an episode just the days before Christmas. I want to show you my Christmas gifts. I talked about that in the last episode, that it's so much more fun to show the knitting when I still have it here, instead of just showing pictures. So I'm gonna take the chance now. It's 3 days before Christmas today when I'm recording. Hopefully I'll get this episode out before Christmas, and then you can watch it if you have some holiday, some days off work or whatever you do. I'm gonna have almost a week and a half free time from work, and hopefully a lot of knitting time during those days. I definitely feel like I need to rest, so looking forward to that. I'm also gonna talk a little bit about what I will cast on for the uppeläggarkväll, as we call it here in the Swedish knitting community, but more on that later in the episode. Yeah, so let's maybe start with what I'm wearing. I have dressed up in a little bit, a bit of a Christmassy outfit. It's not very easy to see because I'm matching my red chair. But yeah, this slipover I showed in the last episode. I was working on it then, and I finished. However, it's very short. You can see my waist is about here, so very, very cropped indeed. I said in the last episode that I'm very confident that I'm gonna be able to make a whole slipover with my yarn, the amount of yarn that I had. That was a bit more tricky than I first thought. So yeah, this is as long as I could get it, really. And you can also see like the neckline and this the ribbing here, like it's super short, just like a 5 rows maybe, just to really make the best of what I had. So that's a bit of a shame. Of course I could buy more yarn, but I don't know, it feels so unnecessary to buy yarn for just like, I only need a few more centimeters, really. So I don't see that happening. And I have actually worn it once to like a Christmas dinner or a Christmas feast. So that's nice. I had to do something about my hair. Yeah, in last episode I talked about being like matching my slipover with my partner's slipover. They're not the same color or anything, but sort of the same style. And we did. We both had our slipovers on this Christmas lunch dinner that we went to. It looked really cute. We of course forgot to take pictures, which happens quite often with us actually. So I can't show you, unfortunately. But yeah, it felt good enough to wear it. My partner thought it was way too short, so I don't think he didn't really like the length of it. But who cares what he thinks, right? So yeah, we'll see if I'll wear it a lot or not, we'll see. But it's, I mean, besides from it being short, I like it. The yarn I used 2 strands of yarn. 1 strand of Tynt Per Gynt from Sandnes, and 1 strand of alpaca följetråd, also from Samnes. And it was my first time using both of those yarns, and especially holding them together. I think the alpaca följetråd is supposed to be like an alternative to a silk mohair. That's kind of how they market that yarn. And I can definitely see why. It's very soft and also quite fluffy. It doesn't really show up, but it has that same effect, I'd say. Not as much as the silk mohair, of course, but still. I feel like my ribbings here, you can see they are definitely stretching a little bit. It's the bind off, I think. It's a bit too tight. And I redid the neckline like 3 times because it was always, the bind off was too tight for me to get it over my head. So that was also a bit annoying. But now I think it's okay. And of course I didn't do a folded neckline because I didn't have that much yarn. So I was a bit worried that I wouldn't like it, because folded necklines usually are my favorites. But I think it looks okay actually. So nothing to complain about except that it's too short. And the tweed, this is my first time using like a tweedy yarn. Quite like it. It's I mean, sometimes I haven't worn this with white yet because I'm a bit scared that it's gonna look, because it isn't really white, but it's also not really beige. It's kind of like in between grey, beige and white. So it feels like it could look almost like a little bit dirty next to white. So we'll see. But I do like wearing white on white, like different shades of white, but it has to be the right shade, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to working with especially the Tynn Per Gynt. I have a project coming up. It's the uppeläggarkväll project actually, that I'm gonna work with Tynn Per Gynt. I want to work with regular Per Gynt as well. For now I've only made one garment in that yarn, and it's the slipover for my partner, so I'm a bit jealous of him actually, that he get to wear it. But now let's get into the Christmas gifts, I think. I have 3 completely finished gifts and 2 almost finished gifts, but they are finished enough that I can show them to you and you'll probably understand what it's all about. So what should we start with? Here's my little pile. Okay, let's start with the failure. And it's this hat. I showed it in the last episode, and I think I said that I was scared it was going to be too big, which it definitely is. I was supposed to gift this to my partner's father, but I scratched that idea because I think it's going to be way too big for him. And my partner, he's the person I know who has like the biggest head I know. So if anyone could wear it, it would be him. And yeah, so I decided like I could give it to him as a Christmas gift. However, he has already seen it, and I tried it on him, and it is too big. If like the glass is half full, it's perfect. Half empty, it's too big. So it depends on how you look at it. I mean, now my head is a lot smaller than his, but still, you can just to show how big it is. But it doesn't look too bad actually on me. But like it's just, look at this. But yeah, he put it on, he said he liked it, which he always does with my knitting, even though I can see that it's like a complete disaster. So I guess I'll gift it to him. Even though I said like you can just take it now because you've seen it already, but he wanted it as a Christmas gift. So you gotta give the crowd what they want. but it's like other than that, it looks really nice. It's just that it's too big, so kind of like my slipover here, right? Just not the same size, not the right size. But that's what happens when you don't swatch and when you're too lazy to reknit or buy more yarn, etc. So that's just how it goes. I can feel my throat is a little bit. I feel like I'm about to get sick actually, so I'm trying to put on a happy face, but I'm not feeling the best right now. I'm just hoping that I won't get sick so that I miss out on all the Christmas celebrations, which I did last year because I was sick last year. So, but I'm sorry if my throat is, if it doesn't sound as smooth and beautiful as it usually does. Anyway, this is the Oslo hat. You probably recognize it. It's a very popular pattern from Petite Knit. This color is, I think it looks really nice now. I was a bit worried that it was like a bit, almost like a washed out brown or like a very bland type of brown. But I kind of like it now. It's the yarn is Ulrika Natur from Svarta Fåret. It's a wool yarn and not superwash, 100% wool from India. I talked about this in the last episode as well. So I think it's an okay project, and yeah, I'll give it to my boyfriend, and if he wears it, that's good. If he doesn't, maybe sometime in the future I could reconsider using the yarn for something else. But it's always hard to do that, like when you have just finished a project. I mean, I've blocked it, I've woven in the ends, everything. It's just a bit hard to start ripping it out at that point, I think. So I'm gonna put this under the Christmas tree, which we actually have this year, because now we live in a house, or like a attached house, compared to last year when we lived in a really small apartment for the two of us. So now we have a Christmas tree, actually. And I have knitted something for the Christmas tree. I was supposed to show it here, but now I'm a bit... I don't really feel confident to show it because it turned out really bad. Maybe I can pop in a picture of the Christmas tree, so you can see it, because it's hanging in the Christmas tree. But yeah, it didn't turn out very well. But that's knitting, you know, you never know. It can be a success, it can be a complete failure. Kind of like life in general. Next gift. I can show you another hat. Now we're on the hat part of the episode. And this one I'm a lot more pleased with. And it's this one. And this pattern is the watch cap hat from Pearl Soho. If you don't know already, Pearl Soho has a lot of free patterns. That's really nice. This is a very nice 2x2 ribbed hat. And this is what the decreases for the crown look like. So very basic, nice hat pattern, I think. They also have like blankets. I think I've knitted one of their blanket patterns, and yeah, a lot of accessories, good for gift knitting, I'd say. And this is for my partner's brother, and because it's in ribbing, it's very stretchy, so it fits a lot of different head sizes, I'd say. It fits me okay as well, and I guess like my head is probably smaller than his. So looks good. And I did actually knit this in I think like the children's size almost. I think, or maybe the women's size, I'm not sure. But I'm also a loose knitter, so it's usually not a problem for me to go down a size. for these kind of knits, and I think the pattern in general is quite big, like the sizes are quite big. I got that feeling when I looked in the Ravelry projects and the project notes. Maybe because of the ribbing, like it stretches out very easily. So I'd recommend you to maybe go down a size, or depending on who's the recipient, of course, but yeah, just to get a nice fit. And I used the same yarn for this project, Ulrika Natur from Svarta Fåret, although in a different color, of course. And this is a really nice shade of green. You can see it has a lot of different tones, almost like greens and a little bit of blue, gray almost. But the color also look a little bit washed out almost. It's definitely more in the camera than in real life, but still the colors are very muted, so not super bright colors, which is kind of nice. Very earthy tones. And yeah, I think that's... I didn't really do any modifications that I can think of. The bind-off is just... what's it called? Is it Icelandic bind-off? Which is sort of equivalent to the German... What's it called? German cast-on? Twisted German cast-on, I think. Yeah, but it's a good stretchy bind-off. You can see it stretches quite a lot. And I used 3.5mm needles, I think. Yeah, I think. Very happy with this. I hope he'll like it. He's very like well dressed, I'd say, so a little bit nervous to give something hand knitted for him. But I think this will work with his like style. He dresses in very like earthy tones and muted tones, so I think this should fit him. Yeah. So 2 hats, and that's all the hats. Now let's move on to a cowl, which looks a little bit like this. Ta-da! And I can put it on to show you. Now one of the bind-offs is a lot tighter than the other, or like I think this is the cast-on edge, which is way tighter than the bind-off edge. So I don't know, which one do you want to have on top? Maybe the tighter one on top, so it's closer to... It's a little bit tight, but that was on purpose. Just because I think a cowl, for me at least, I get more wear out of it if it's a bit tight. Then you can pull it up a little bit, and then you can wear your jacket and sort of tuck it nice and tight like this. So, all in all, happy with the look and the fit. I'll take it out. I'll take it off. And this is for my partner's mother. And the idea is that she takes like really long walks every day. I think she walks for like an hour every day at least. So I feel like she could wear this like when she goes on walks, especially now in the winter time. I knit this in a superwash wool. In fact, if you've watched my previous episodes, you may recognize the colors. It's the same colors I used for the sunflower bloom baby blanket that I made just a couple of episodes ago. So these are leftover yarns from that project, which is really nice. And I like this yarn combination. It's this like mustardy yellow and brown and like a natural white. And it's a superwash yarn, so this should be easily washable. And I feel like of all the people I'm gifting this year she's the one who would enjoy that the most, to be able to wash it in the washing machine. And especially like if she wears it like this, I feel like it could get kind of sweaty if she wears it for her walks, for example. So it's nice to be able to wash it. And I followed a pattern for this one. It's called Valborg. Yeah, Valborg. It's a pattern in Swedish. I'm not sure if it's in any other languages, but in Swedish at least. But it's not very difficult to understand as long as you know how many stitches to cast on. It's a free pattern as well. So you start by casting on, let's see, you start by casting on a number of stitches, and then right before you start the color work you increase 8 stitches, and then you knit the color work, and then you decrease 8 stitches when you're about to start working the rib down here, and then you bind off. So a really simple pattern. I have modified the color work a little bit, partly by accident and partly because I wanted to. So maybe I can put the pattern picture here just to show you like how they differ. I'd say this part in the middle doesn't really exist in the pattern, because I think there's a mistake in the chart actually in the pattern. So I followed the chart, but you can see in the sample photo that it doesn't really look the same. So I think there's a mistake in the chart, but I kind of like how it turned out. However, when I decided that I'll keep knitting on this the way it says in the chart, I think I made a mistake when I tried to mimic like this top part and the bottom part, because you can see it looks a little bit weird. Like this top part doesn't really look the same as this bottom part, which I feel like they maybe should. But who cares? You definitely can't see it, and it doesn't really look like a mistake. It looks like this could be the intended chart, or like the intended pattern, so no problem. You can also see I modified sort of the order of these a little bit. In the pattern you're supposed to first knit a section with like 3 of these little, you see I have 2 of these here, but the first section was supposed to have 3, and then 2, and then 1, and 2, and 1. Yeah, you can see in the picture here. I decided to have like the first and the last to look the same, and then a smaller one in the middle. And it's a good length like this, I think, as well. So a few modifications, and oh, and I also modified the stitch count because my yarn wasn't the same thickness as the recommended yarn in the pattern. So I think I had a thicker yarn, and then I chose a smaller cast on number of stitches to cast on. So that's an easy modification you can do as well if you would like to knit this cowl, depending on what yarn you want to use. That's all I have to say about this, really. I hope she will like it. The colors are a bit out there compared to the other gifts that are a lot more neutral, but if there's anyone who would enjoy these colors, I think it would be her. Now, the final gift. No, I have 2 more gifts actually. But the one I'm gonna show you now is definitely my favorite, and I'm so jealous of the recipient because I want to keep these for myself. They fit me perfectly. Because I made sure that they would fit me perfectly, because then I think they will fit her well enough at least. But these are not completely finished, but almost. This is what it looks like. Yeah, you can see the threads from the embroidery here, still not completely finished with that. Here's the second one. Now you may think this is just like a regular white mitten, nothing special, but I think they're so beautiful. In the last episode I talked about the lovikka mitten. This is a lovikka mitten, and it's kind of like a traditional Swedish mitten, so go back to that episode if you want to learn more about this mitten pattern. But there's so many things I like about these, even though they look very basic. I'm gonna put them on. The fit is absolutely perfect. Most of my mittens tend to get too large. They're just too large, which is okay because I usually wear a thinner pair of gloves underneath my mittens. I'm also very, very cold. My hands get really cold, so yeah, it wouldn't be enough to just have one layer on my hands. But these are perfect. They fit perfectly without having anything underneath, and hopefully that means they will fit her pretty nicely as well. It's for my partner's brother's wife. And I followed a free pattern from Järbo as well, the same as the cowl. Not sure if it's in other languages, but lovikka mittens, it's a very popular type of mitten, so you'll definitely be able to find some kind of lovikka pattern in another language than Swedish. So if you want to knit something similar, there are a few different patterns out there. And I knit these in like a typical lovikka yarn, which is a really thick yarn. You can see, oh, it's very bright. You can see it's super thick, like bulky size. But I found actually some patterns that are lovikka mittens but with thinner yarn, which was kind of interesting, because maybe you don't want these type of bulky mitten, but you still like the design, so recommend that if that's something you would like to try. I made 2 modifications, probably some more smaller modifications, but 2 big modifications that I'm so pleased with, and that's probably why I like them so much. The first one is the thumb. So in the pattern that I followed, the mittens just have a simple, I don't know what it's called, but there is no thumb shaping, so basically the mitten looks like this, and then you put a scrap yarn on a few stitches and then you work the thumb from there. And I know a lot of people don't like that kind of fit because it feels like your hand looks like this because the thumb goes out from from the hand, but in reality your thumb is a little bit more to the side. So I wanted to adjust that, and I did. So I did sort of increases for the thumb so that it's a little bit more like a regular, looks like a regular hand. So yeah, you can see it goes a little bit more out. Maybe it's not easy to see, but it definitely goes out from the side as opposed to like this from the middle of the hand. And I just like kind of winged that. I had to re-knit it maybe a couple of times, but this is a really quick knit because the yarn is so thick, and I used like 5.5mm needles, I think, so very quick. So very happy with that. And the other modification, I actually like randomly found it on a blog post that's like 15 years old. A Swedish lady who wrote a blog post that there was one thing that bugged her a little bit when she knit lovikka mittens, and that is that the fit of the cuff is always so big. So she thought like, yeah, it wasn't snug enough here around the wrist. And what she did to make it fit better is that underneath this fold, she knits in ribbing instead of just regular stockinette. So you can see I have some ribbing here, and you simply fold this part over. So that means you get the fit is a little bit better because the rib tightens up the knitting, but you can't really see it because you fold this over anyway. So I thought that was super clever, and I'm very glad I did that, because the fit is actually really good around here. So I recommend that as well if you knit something that has this kind of design of like folding up the cuff here. So yeah, so 2 really nice modifications. And one thing I did, which is also part of the lovikka mitten design, is that on the inside, maybe I can show it if I turn it inside out. Yeah, you can almost see how fluffy it is on the inside, look. And that is because you take sort of a steel brush and you just like, in Swedish we say rugga. I don't know what the English word is, but you use the steel brush to get the wools to fluff up, which gives it this really nice warmth and smooth feeling. So it's very smooth for your hand on the inside, and the fabric gets a bit tighter, or like more dense, I think. So very nice. I could probably do a little bit more. I'm not sure how much is appropriate, but I have seen people using that steel brush for the outside of the mitten. You can see I haven't done that, so mine is just like very plain here, but I know some people use the steel brush, and then you get sort of like a hairy hairy mitten, which is also nice, but I chose to just do it on the inside. So that's also something I'm so pleased with. Like when I put my hand in here, it's so soft and nice, which is also a nice little detail about this mitten. So a lot of things happening in here, even though it's a very simple design really, which is quite nice. And what I have left is of course the embroidery. I sat last night and tried a few different colors. So the original lovikka design has you use blue and red, which is the color of like the Sami flag, and I felt like maybe that was a little bit too much, too much out there for the recipient of this mitten. She's also like more of the neutral colors, earthy colors, so in the end I tried this just using the same lovikka yarn that I had to do this white embroidery. I think it looks very, very good. It looks so clean and stylish. So I think I'll go with this. I also tried like a brown and light blue color combination. If you watched my last episode, you know I really like that combination. I used it for my slipover, Visla slipover that I showed in the last episode. That also looked good, but I think this will be the safest color to use, and also nice to be able to use the scraps, because I only have like, I used 2 balls of this lovikka yarn, and this is how much I have left of each ball. I'm thinking I could knit like baby socks or baby mittens with this yarn. That would be really comfortable, I think, for a baby, and it should be enough to do that. But yeah, very happy about these, and I'm gonna be so jealous of her as well. I need to make myself a pair of mittens. They are quite, I wouldn't say pricey, but still 1 skein of this lovikka yarn costs 100 Swedish crowns, I think. So what's that? Almost $10. And you need 2. So it's not super pricey, but still, if you knit like a pair of mittens with Rauma Finull, you can get it for almost half the price. But I'd say definitely worth it, because these are very, very happy about these. They're a little bit tough to knit though, I just have to warn you, because the yarn is so thick and you use big needles, especially when you knit the thumb. It's quite strenuous on the hands. but because it's a quick knit, so it's over before you know it. Finally, the final Christmas gift. It's definitely not finished, but I think you will understand the concept. Yeah, so this is what we have. One square and another square. And you can see that they are symmetrical. And these are supposed to be mitts, hand mitts. Is it called hand mitts? These are supposed to be fingerless mitts. So it's supposed to sit like this around the hands. Hard to show, but yeah, it's supposed to seam the edge here, and then you have... Oh, this wasn't easy to show. Now, like this. And what I have left to do is, I think you're supposed to make some kind of thumb here. So like pick up stitches here and knit just like a couple of centimeters or something. So hopefully I'll be able to do that tonight maybe. And this pattern was so much fun to knit. I recommend this a lot. Also a free pattern. It's called Log Cabin Mitts from Karen Templer, who I've talked about previously. She's one of my favorite like designers or knitters. She has some knitting designs, but she's also had a really good blog. She's not writing in that blog anymore, unfortunately, but I can definitely recommend going into the archives. A lot of knitting inspiration and knitting tips and tricks. I learned a lot from her. And yeah, I wanted to knit this pattern for a couple of years, I think. My mom has knitted a pair of mitts using this pattern, and I've been so jealous when I've seen them at her house. So finally I saw an opportunity to knit them. And if you haven't figured it out already, these will be for my partner's dad instead of the gigantic hat. And I think this is actually a better gift because he writes a lot on his computer, and like in the summertime in their country place he likes to sit out on the porch and write on his computer, and Swedish summer can sometimes be a bit chilly, so then he could use these just for the hands and still be able to write on his computer. That's the... I have a pitch for all my all my gifts. Yeah, but it's fun to, like, when you gift something, I think that's a big part of the fun of gifting people, because gifting things to people, because like thinking about what are their needs and what would they enjoy, what colors and what kind of style, and yeah, it just makes it a bit more meaningful, I think. So this design is so much fun. What you do is you start by knitting this middle square, so like it's all in garter stitch, and you count the bumps, like the garter ridges, you know, garter stitch. So for this blue you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 garter ridges, and that goes for like every piece. It's always 7 garter ridges, so that's kind of the logic of the whole thing. So you start knitting these 7 garter ridges, that is equivalent to 14 knitting rows back and forth, and then you like rotate to pick up and knit. Well, for this one you rotate and pick up and knit the next square, and then you rotate so you can pick up along both squares and knit another one, and then you rotate, and so it keeps on growing and growing until finally you have this, the largest one here. So that's like so much fun and very clever design, I think. And for the final 2 edges, this one and this one, you can see there are still live stitches, so next step is to seam those together and, like I said, knit a thumb for the top part here. So it should be a fun, quick finishing. What else? So the yarn I used, I love the color combination actually. And this, I used 2 strands of yarn for each color. I only used yarn that I had at home, and my idea was to use 1 strand of Holst Super Soft, which is a very thin, like light fingering yarn, with 1 strand of just a random fingering / sport weight yarn that I had in my stash. But for this black part, I think I used 2 strands of Holst Super Soft actually, because one of them was on the cone and the other strand was already wound up in a ball. So I assumed that was a completely different kind of yarn, but then when I started knitting it felt like both of the strands were Holst Super Soft. But that worked fine. I mean, that's a yarn, if you haven't used it, it really transforms when you wash it, so it fills out pretty nicely anyway. And for the beige I used 1 strand of Rauma Finull and 1 strand of Holst Super Soft, and for this one as well 1 strand of Holst Super Soft and another strand that's a little bit, you can see that this color is definitely more vibrant and has this like, yeah, more vibrant than the other, because one of the strands was a very beautiful, I'll see if I can actually find it. I have a little bit left. Can't really see, can you? Because I don't have that much left. A little bit, yeah. You can see it has like a blue and grey sort of effect. Very nice. So happy with the color combination, and the only thing that's a little bit problematic is because I chose to put these blue-grey colors on these big chunks here, when I'm gonna seam it and then knit the thumb, I think the thumb is supposed to be in this color. However, with this amount of yarn, I don't think I'm gonna be able to knit 2 thumbs in that color. So I think I'm just gonna have to go with the black, which I mean, it will probably look okay. Yeah, maybe this project I'm actually, in the next episode, gonna show you pictures, just so you get to see the whole thing. And now, I mean, I have blocked these actually, so the pattern has you knit this square and then you block it before you go into the next step. And now that it's blocked, it looks really nice to use for something else. Like this size, you could have it to put like pots and pans and stuff on top, for example, or like a smaller, if you did a smaller square, you could use it as a coaster or something. So definitely more things you can do, you can use this for. Recommend it a lot, it was so much fun. Okay, enough about that. I have one more work in progress that I want to show you, and I'm also gonna show you what pattern I will cast on just now before Christmas. My next cast on is a sweater that I'm working on, and I am making this one up as I go, and I will show you. Let me first show you the swatch, because I've actually knit a swatch for this one. So this is this is the swatch. Let's see. Now my swatches are not very neat, and I also never bind off or anything, just to not waste any yarn. So I started down here. Oh wow, you can't really, I need to have my hands like this. Now, So this is sort of what I tried at first. This is like a slip stitch, or like a broken rib, I think this is called. But I thought it was a little bit too much, so instead I tried this stitch, which is called the Andalusian stitch, I think it's called. It's kind of like the broken rib, only that this like rib row, you only do it every 4th row, whereas for a broken rib you do it every 2nd row. And I thought that looked really nice, so I decided to go with that. And this is what I have so far. It's not very nice that I have my lamp back here, because you can see right through it, and it's not even, I mean, it is quite thick, so I wouldn't say it's see-through, but still the light goes through. But maybe you get the idea. Yeah, Andalusian stitch, I think is what it's called. And it's quite nice, like it's very discreet, and yeah, it's quite discreet, but still definitely something that's happening, and more exciting than just a simple stockinette stitch. And this is the back piece, so I should show it like this maybe. I'm knitting a drop shoulder construction, so this is supposed to be the back. And I've done some short rows, so at first I cast on all of these stitches, and then I did some short rows just to get the neck up here a bit higher. As you can see, it sort of slants down here a little bit. And yeah, actually I thought I would talk a little bit about how I make up my patterns myself. So I need to get my little sketchbook to show you. Okay, so I have my little sketchbook, and I'm warning you, this is not going to be a pretty sight. I just want to show you kind of how I go about knitting stuff for myself, from my own measurement, from my own head. So I started just making a sketch of the actual kind of fit that I wanted. So yeah, you can see a drop shoulder was what was on my mind from the start. And then I just I didn't get very far, but I wanted some kind of texture. I knew that, but I didn't know if I wanted to have it everywhere, like all over, or in like the stripy effect, or yeah, some kind of drop shoulder. And Rauma Fivel is the yarn. Almost the same name as Rauma Final, but Rauma Fivel is the yarn, and the needle size I chose was 4mm or 4.5mm. And that's because I just simply looked at the yarn, so this is the yarn. And back here, you can always see the recommended needle size, and it says 4 to 5mm needles. So somewhere in between that. And this is the yarn, it's a dark brown, also a very vibrant type of brown, but quite dark. So that's step 1. Then step 2, all the measurements and knowing how many stitches to cast on. And that sketch looks a little bit like this. So completely messy and all over the place. That's usually what happens. So I would say like the most important measurement is the chest measurement. And especially for this kind of drop shoulder construction, I want this measurement to be right, because then I know sort of how many stitches I need to increase to here. For the underarms, I know how many stitches I want to cast on, because I wanted to do like short rows up here. I cast on the total amount of stitches from the start, and then I do the short rows. So very important to know how many stitches to cast on here and how many to increase to for the underarms. And to figure out that, I chose to look at a sweater that I already own. And this is a store-bought sweater, and I bought it like secondhand from someone. And it has actually, I think, done its job now. It doesn't look very nice. I mean, it's a really nice sweater, but you can see the fabric, it's pilling a lot. Which, oh, it doesn't show. No. Yeah, you can see. And this is what happens with store-bought sweaters. I mean, this is, I think it has some wool content maybe, but not a lot. And I have tried to depill it several times, and it doesn't get any better. So that's a real shame, but you know, that's what happens. But I like the fit of it, and it's a nice brown sweater, so I could easily replace it with a homemade brown sweater instead. So I'm using this sort of as a reference, because this is also a drop shoulder construction. Maybe you can see. And it's a nice oversized fit. So I'm basically just measuring from this one, and then I'm calculating to my gauge. So I had my swatch, so I know my gauge, sort of. It's not completely accurate, but kind of, I know my gauge, and then I'm using that to calculate how many stitches to cast on. And that's sort of where I'm at the moment. Right now I'm knitting the back piece here, and I have measured also for how long I need to knit before binding off here. So yeah, and then I'm gonna pick up stitches, kind of like what I did for this slipover. I'm picking up stitches here for the front and doing a similar here for the front. So yeah, that's all I'll say about like the construction now. Maybe I can talk more about it when I have gotten a bit further in future episodes. We'll see how long it takes, if you're interested. Yeah, and I haven't decided whether to keep going with this Andalusian stitch for the entire sweater, or if I'll only have it up here, and then as soon as I start working on the sleeves and the body separately, I'll just knit regular stockinette. I'm not sure. I haven't decided. We'll see when I get there. And about this yarn, this is the first time I'm working with Rauma Fivel, and it's a very different yarn compared to what I've worked with previously. And I've tried to think about like how to explain it, but it's quite hard. I would probably say it's quite hard. I thought of it at first as being like a papery feeling, almost like paper, but that doesn't sound very pleasant to work with, and it is actually quite nice to knit with, so it's not a negative word at all. But it's like paper, it's very dry to the touch and still very airy. Dry and airy. Very hard to describe yarn, but interesting experience, and I'm very excited to see what it's gonna look like, and what the fabric is gonna be, how the fabric is gonna feel after washing as well, because I haven't tried that yet. So yeah, but I can see why people like this yarn. It's quite new. I think it's almost like a year old or something, and like a fair price as always with the Rauma yarns. So a lot of fun to knit with, and nice to knit with larger needle size, because otherwise I knit a lot with like 3mm needles, so it's nice to have a little bit of a quicker knit. Yeah, I need to wrap up soon. First I will I'll just talk about my fairly new segment where I talk about what's on my mind. And the first thing that's on my mind is actually the project that I'm about to cast on for the uppeläggarkväll. So, quick explanation. In Sweden we celebrate Christmas on the 24th, which means that the 23rd is our night before Christmas, or like evening before Christmas. And that's usually like when you stay at home, maybe with family. Some people decorate their trees at that time, in case they haven't done that already, the Christmas tree. Some people, you know, you can wrap your gifts for Christmas, you write some poems sort of for your gifts. But what's been recently, like what a lot of people do the night before Christmas, is they watch TV, and it's called like uppeläggarkväll. So a couple of the TV channels here in Sweden have like a uppeläggarkväll, a TV show that goes on for all night. And so the Swedish knitting community have used that word uppeläggarkväll, but they've made it into a knitting word, which is uppeläggarkväll, which means that it's the night of casting on, basically. I could translate it to. So for some knitters it's a tradition to cast on something new for that evening, and then you can sit and knit on that the entire evening, and maybe also like the Christmas holidays that come after. So for me, I have decided to cast on a sweater or a cardigan that is called Tistel, and I've actually had my boyfriend to print this out for me in his office. You can't really see exactly what it looks like. Maybe there's a better picture in here. Here maybe you can see. It's a beautiful colorwork cardigan here as well. It's got these almost like flowers or stars or whatever you want to call it. Really big color as well. And this is a pattern that my mom has knitted, or she's knitting on it right now, I think. I don't know, have you finished? But I'm also very excited to knit on it. And I will show you some of the finished projects that I liked the most, that I found on Ravelry or Instagram, I'm not sure, I think Ravelry. I'll put them here next to me when I'm talking. It's knit with tynnpergynt, which is what I used for this slipover. And it's knit on a very loose gauge, so I'm a little bit worried about that. It's knit on a 20 stitch gauge, and tynnpergynt is a very thin yarn, like definitely fingering weight. So we'll see, maybe I'll go down a needle size just to get it a little bit more thick, because it looks on the pictures, the pattern, like the sample, looks very thin and almost a little bit see-through at some points. So maybe I'll go down a needle size, but that just means it'll be a lot of knitting, because I do want it to be an oversized fit, and you know, quite long and quite big as well. So yeah, hopefully I'll have the stamina to keep knitting on it until it's finished. Yeah, I mean, there are some beautiful versions, you'll see them here next to me, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep it neutral. I'm gonna knit it in like a brown color, light brown and white and dark brown. There are 3 colors that you use, so, but the main color is sort of a light brown, and I think that will look nice, just like something to wrap around you now in the winter. And another thing that's been on my mind is let me see, I'll put it up here. Here we go. I have found 2 mitten patterns that are quite similar, but I mean, there are 2 different patterns, and they look so good. So the first one is this one that's called Vanten Irene, and it is a Swedish pattern, a Swedish designer, so I'm not sure how many languages the pattern is in, but it's so beautiful and it has this like classic look. It reminds me of like old like leather mittens, when you have like leather mittens and a cuff in wool, like very luxurious type of mitten. But this is of course in 100% wool. And the cuff, I think the cuff is in reverse stockinette, right? Can't really see, but very nice detail. And I love the colors on this sample as well, with like the brown and the dark white, or like, yeah, very neutral colors. And the other pattern that looks similar is called curly cuff mittens. However, in this pattern I think the cuff is knit with a boucle yarn. Yes, I can see now it is. And it's also thicker in general, I think, because the main mitten, part of the mitten, is knit with Vams from Raumagarn, which is a very thick yarn. And a yarn that you can felt almost, and it looks like they're kind of felted as well. Also a very, very beautiful design. So yeah, I thought I'd just show them to you. I was very inspired, and I'm definitely feeling a little bit eager to knit mittens, looking at these designs, and also the lovikka mitten, which I was so happy about. I feel like I need to cast on for a pair of mittens soon. Yeah, I think that's everything I have time for now. But anyway, I hope you have a lovely Christmas, if that's something that you celebrate, or just like happy holidays, and that you find some peace and quiet for the holidays. I'm definitely gonna relax as much as I can, and hopefully I'll be back with a new episode maybe mid-January or something, and hopefully I'll have done a lot of knitting by then. So I'll see you then. Goodbye!